No, it sounds funny, but I just can't stand the pain.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to Feeding the Soul podcast. Today is personal favorite guest of mine, someone I met at a festival a few years ago. Honestly, did not know his name. I'm like, oh, this is a cool event. Let's go to his meal at this winery. And it was still, to this day, one of the best meals I've ever had. It was incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Chef Michael Reed. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
So, I mean, I've already told you this before, but that lunch you did at Ferrari Carano Winery, I think that was 3 years ago now at the festival.
Yeah, 3 years
That,
ago at Hillsburg, it was my first ever Hillsburg food and wine event that we did. So
yeah, and
it was a show. It was a showstopper.
it was our first year going to it too. So we didn't know what to expect. It was just one of the this itinerary that's set up for you. And we're like, oh, it's a chef named Michael Reed. Never heard of him. Let's check it out. And we were every course of the meal, my wife and I were looking at each other like, this guy for real? Like it was just so good. And so anyways, that got us exploring your restaurant, which you see in my background here. This is one of the restaurants. Um, so, anyways, that's why this is. I was very excited to be able to have you on the show, so I appreciate you coming in. Um,
No, it's our
so,
pleasure.
for those who are listening or watching for the first time, the focus here is to not just focus on someone who's very talented at being a chef or a winemaker, but also how they give back to the community or how they pay it forward. So, we're going to get a quick little bio and intro for you, but then we're going to get more into the important stuff that's near and dear to you a little bit later. So, people who've never seen you before on Food Network, and if they haven't, my guess is they're just not watching Food Network because you're all up all over it now. Um, Give us like a 2 minute bio. Like, what got you into culinary arts? Did you always want to be a chef? Is this something that you fell into? And so, give us like the cliff notes from there to where you're at now.
So yeah, I started cooking after dropping out of UC Santa Barbara my junior year up in Santa. Couldn't run anymore, so my plan B was to become a chef instead of an accountant, and as an econ major. Did time in New York and went to school at the Culinary Institute of America in upstate New York and did their 2 year program. Worked in fine dining restaurants in New York and New Jersey, and fell in love with fine dining. So that when I came back to LA, I started working only at fine dining Michelin 1 star rated restaurants in LA. So Sona, which was one, Nancy Silverton's restaurant, Osteria Mozza.
Oh,
And then by
nice.
20, yeah. And then by 26, I became an executive chef. Way too young, way too fast. Should have kept working for other people and learning, but that's neither here nor there. So I started that, did that for 2 years. And then by 28, I started my catering company called Root of All Food, which was founded in Santa Monica. And then by 30, opened Poppy and Rose in downtown LA, which is one of the top brunch restaurants in Los Angeles. Fast forward to COVID. COVID happened. We survived. I shut 2 hotels down, kept our little restaurant in downtown alive. And towards the tail end of COVID, my wife was like, you can't go back to work. So then we opened Poppy and Seed in Anaheim. So,
So, okay, that first of all, out of all my guests, you did the best job of doing the Cliff Notes version. That was impressive.
yeah.
Um, so, two things popped up there. Number one, and this might be a loaded question. You said that you got to executive chef way too soon. So most people would think that would be a good thing. So why was it a bad thing in your mind?
For me, it's once you hit a certain level, i.e., titles matter in our industry. So once you have that top dog executive chef title on your resume, it's kind of like it's hard to go backwards. It's hard to go back and work underneath someone else that is not, they're going to look at your resume and go, you're an executive chef. Why do you want to be a line cook at our 3 Michelin star rated restaurant? They just kind of question it and they're like, yeah, you're really
Hmm.
talented and you're really good, but no, we're not going to hire you. So it all of a sudden became very lonely at that point at 26 as in chef because, you couldn't just walk into a random restaurant as a line cook and go get a job anymore because you
Hmm.
had the pedigree behind you to do it, which it worked out in my favor. Like I got to go run really cool hotels like the Standard in West Hollywood, the Avalon Hotel in Beverly Hills, and I still got to do really fun stuff. And I just leaned on reading more books, researching online, and still being able to talk to a couple of my friends that were on that same trajectory as me as getting titles that would share information, because it's like we say we're open and we like to share information, but there's certain lines that you just don't cross because everyone's like, oh, you're gonna poach either my line
Yeah.
cooks, you're gonna
Yeah.
steal recipes from me. And I'm like, I'm just trying to learn. I'm 26 or 28, 30 years old, and I'm just like, I'm still learning. There's so much to learn in this industry. So, you know, fast forward 10 years later, it's like we now have this guest chef series that we started that's called Us Friends, because it's like now I just get to invite them to our restaurant and I get to hang out with really cool chefs like Shota and Stephanie. Upcoming is Adam and Kevin Lee. So it's like now I just have to invite them to my restaurant to learn from them instead of, getting a job somewhere else.
You've got to the point where they're just coming to you now. If you build it, they will come kind of thing. Yeah, I
A
saw
little bit,
that.
a little.
I
Yeah.
saw that Us Friends series that popped up on my Instagram. I'm like, oh my God, is this some sort of like superstar collection of chef? And I didn't realize that was just your project. That's awesome.
I just, like I said, I want to keep learning. And the easiest way for me to keep learning now that we're running two restaurants and working on a couple other projects is like invite the chefs in. They come in 2 to 3 days beforehand. We cook in the kitchen. They eat our food. We just hang out.
Mm.
It's not your normal, like when we go meet up normally, it's like at Sobe Food and Wine Festival. It's at Tournament of Champions. So it's game time. It's game time. You're
Mhm.
kikiing and you're having fun, but you're not. I don't ever get to taste their food because it's the judges get to taste it, and then the beauty shot for the camera. We don't really get
Right.
to eat each other's food, so it's nice to actually invite them in a much more relaxed environment, which is our restaurant. And they get to try our food. We get to help them prep out their dishes and taste their style of food and learn from them. So it's really fun.
That does sound exciting. Speaking of your restaurant, and it's the second thing that came up with your Cliff Notes bio was so COVID hit, and first of all, being able to keep something open during that, kudos, because that was tough on so many people. But was it scary when COVID started to relax a little bit and people were sort of coming out of their caves to open up a second restaurant right after that? Like it had to be terrifying a little.
It's a gamble. It's one of those things where because I was running two hotels prior to COVID happening. So it's like they were calling and being like, hey, would you want to come back?
Mm.
And at that time, my wife got used to me being home and we were just running the one restaurant. And then I was like, this is cool. It's the best brunch restaurant in Los Angeles, but it's eggs. There's only so many ways I can cook an egg, and I am bored out of my mind. So it is either go back to restaurants or open our own. And so she agreed to let me open a second restaurant that was more dinner focused. And it just happened to be out in Orange County because, everyone was like, well, if it happens or we get a resurgence, like, are we going to have to go back to social distancing? So a lot of restaurant options weren't the traditional model. Like, here's four walls and a roof wouldn't
Mhm.
work in COVID because you're like, yeah, we all had to go outside to be able to eat for a
Right.
while.
Right.
And so we were lucky enough to find Poppy and Seed in Anaheim, where it is considered an open air building because four of the walls open up, and it's more outdoor space than indoor space, so it works in that COVID model. And we're like, let's go, and it was like the right timing. We were ready to grow as a company and as a family. And so it just made sense. And so now it's just like a matter of putting in the work. And it paid off. Year two, with after year one, we got added to the Michelin Guide, semi-finalist for James Beard. All happened in the same year. Top 10 best new restaurants or Orange Coast Magazine. So it was like we knew we had something, and we were not the normal in Anaheim, and we're still not the normal in Anaheim, as far as what the food scene is. So,
Yeah.
we found our niche market, and now that we're into year 4.5 almost, it's like we know what we're doing. We got this figured out.
You definitely know what you're doing. So for
Pretty
those who, this is my background is the restaurant you were just talking about. And I think you're there too.
cool.
Yeah, in the patio. So you can see huge patio back there. Like when you
Yep.
go here,
Yep.
folks, the patio is gargantuan. Even the inside opens up, and there's like this culinary garden around the patio. It's a really cool place. This is the strange questions for chefs because every chef never has enough time in a day. But how do you balance not just being a chef, running restaurants, and having a family, and like you said, constantly wanting to learn new things? Like there's only 24 hours in the day. How do you make that work?
Sacrifices basically. Now you pick and choose, it's there's certain weeks where I'm just grinding and it's all restaurant just because the demand is there. And then there's other weeks as the owner that I'm like, I'm not here. So like most of July we weren't around. We made it a priority. Our little one that's 7, Mackenzie, was off from summer, and so we made sure that we were at home as much as possible during that time. You know, and so, we went to Ojai and we took her out to a bunch of
Nice.
different things, So we just prioritize like when, where, and how. If something takes a little bit longer personally at the restaurant to get launched or off the ground, like put it this way, Us Friends was 2 years in the making. We're glad we
Hmm.
started it, but it was like
Okay.
2 years for us to actually get it going with like, okay, we got these people committing on the dates, we got people engaged, it's tied to a charity for No Kid Hungry, and we had everything lined up. And then finally we launched it then. It was like, yeah, we talk about it every time we see all our chef friends. Hey, let's do a collaboration dinner. And then a year goes by, we see them back at Galesburg, and you're like, oh, we didn't do it. Maybe we should put a date down or really follow through this year. And so it took us 2 years to get that off the ground. So it's like you just kind of pick and choose what's the most important things that have to get addressed in the moment versus being like trying to do everything all the time at every waking moment. So it's like there's certain weeks where I'm like, I'm just reading 20 cookbooks in a month because I'm just curious about a different cuisine, and then I'll stop and then I'll be focused more on something else.
I want to know how this works because I'm in a similar situation too. So when you and your spouse are working together side by side like that, is it where you have like very specific roles and each has their lane, or do you guys interweave with each other? How
No,
does that work?
no, no. So it's always been so we met working together at the Standard in West Hollywood.
Okay.
He is a co-executive chef of the hotel, and basically she was down in accounting doing accounts payable. And so we started working together first, and then we started dating.
Okay.
So for us, it was very like she's on the back half of the admin side of accounting, HR, all the fun stuff that no one wants to talk about, the glitz,
Right.
the glamour of the restaurant that makes it actually operational. She takes care of all that. And then she also does the wine list, names all the cocktails, and manages the front of the house staff. I
Hmm.
deal with kitchen, if anything breaks, design, rebuilds, that kind of like, so we really don't ever over cross each other. We'll collaborate together on, hey, should we get these umbrellas? What color should they be? Things like that. But as far as like food menu, that's all me 100%. Um, Cocktails, wine, that's all her. Um, Music selection, that's her. And it's like we run very close to each other, but we never really overlap. Is the way we found works best for us. Every once in a while, we clash heads because someone feels like they should have done something else. But it's part of running a restaurant where it's like two strong-willed people have different opinions on how service should operate every once in a while. But for most of the time, we're like usually in unison of like how things should operate.
Yeah, I watched the episode that you two did together on Guys Grocery Games before doing this, and Margaret and I were watching, and you and the other couples,
Uh,
like you can tell they run a business together because it was like
yeah,
a well-oiled machine on every one of those challenges. That was fun to watch.
yeah, yeah. It's there's been growing pains, and
Sure.
this, whenever
Oh
you
yeah.
like, a lot of people are like, I would never want to work with my spouse. Cool. I was running my race as far as my track, as far as running hotels and independent restaurants. So and still running my restaurant at the time and the catering company. So I was up and out most days by like 6 a.m., hitting the first restaurant in downtown, doing some private meal delivery stuff for the catering company at the same time. Would leave that restaurant as soon as I could physically get out and then go to the hotel. And then I'll be at the hotel, usually from lunch all the way to dinner service.
Man.
So C came up with this wonderful idea that she would leave her high paying controller position at a well known fashion brand to then come work with me at the restaurants. Like, I want to say like a month or 2 weeks before COVID hit. So it wasn't like
Oh
it
man.
was kind of like one of those, oh, we're doing this and we're in this together now and we're in COVID. So it really like when when some people say, like COVID was terrible, and it was a terrible thing as far as how many people were getting sick and dying. On our side, it was kind of like how we really came together as a family, because now it was like we were all working together, we were all solving the same problems.
Hmm.
We were down to, instead of me running three cons or four concepts at the same time, I was down to just one. And so it was the most amount of time that I've ever been was during COVID, because morning restaurant that opens at 9 and closes at 3. I've never had that much free time in my life. Like it's not even a normal 9 to 5. I could be out of there by 3 o'clock if I really wanted to.
You're like
So
the sun's still up.
every day, versus before it was like I would go in beating the sun wouldn't be up, and then I would move throughout the day. I would see the sun for a little bit, and then by the time I got out, the sun was down. So it worked out in our favor that we kind of grew a lot in those 2 years during COVID, to really figure out how to work together and
Hmm.
really problem solve and be creative. Like, we built a patio because in downtown does not have an outdoor space because it's so close to Skid Row. So we had to go up to the third floor parking garage and build an
Hmm.
outdoor patio that could, picnic benches that could do like 120 people at one time that were 8 feet apart from each other, where it worked. And you had views of downtown, and it was great. For 2.5 years we operated. But logistically, it was like walk a half a block, take a freight elevator up with this hot box that's ripping hot, walk all the way back the half a block, and then you can drop the food off and repeat that for 400
Oh,
guests.
no way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
You do enjoy a challenge.
look it. When you say feed people, I can feed people. We will figure it out.
That that is a unique challenge for sure. Jeez.
Yeah.
So I
Right.
want to switch gears here. I mentioned earlier about focusing on like whatever your passion is, like what is it that's near and dear to your heart. So the way I want to ask this question is sort of situational. If in a perfect world, let's say in a few months, you were allowed to have complete control over organizing a fundraiser for one event or one cause, um, what would the cause or charity be that you would plan this mega fundraising event for? And why?
Honestly, like it's
I know there's probably a few.
two that are near. There's two. There's no that we really are really active in. So the main one, so the us friends that we're doing is right now going back to No Kid Hungry. With that big beautiful bill that passed, we were in DC lobbying how many people are going to go hungry that
Mm-hmm.
don't need to go hungry in the United States is kind of like mind blowing.
Yeah.
The amount of food waste that we actually have, and that we can't figure out how to feed the next generation a healthier meal is crazy to me. And that kind of parlays into what we do for our downtown restaurant, where we feed the unhoused people every day after service, that anything that's left over from that service up in the trash does not end up in the trash and actually goes to a hungry mouth. Um, so those are our two main things that we really focus on. Is really, feeding that, finding ways to help bridge that gap for the kids that are in need in school for the next generation, and then
Yeah.
feeding the homeless that are right in downtown for us. Because those are technically our neighbors to our restaurant, are they on house?
Yeah. It's when you do it at your restaurant, I think that's absolutely incredible. And you'd think that that would be something that if we made that a norm in this country, and I realize it's hard, but you're talking about food that was going to go to waste afterwards anyway. It's not like it's cutting out of margins or something, but that's simple, small steps like that. And you're a father, you know how important it is when kids get a decent meal. I
Oh
mean, I've
yeah.
taught high school long enough to the number one thing you can do to help a student be focused, be successful in school, is make sure they eat. That's like it's unbelievable what a difference that makes.
It's a huge, and it's
Mhm.
I don't know. It sounds so simple to be like, can we feed them? Because we have in the store dumpster, guaranteed there is food that should have been given away or donated to a food bank that someone could have ate, but we would rather let it rot on the shelf and then throw it in the trash, which is crazy. It's just crazy, you know. Well, it's the same.
Yeah,
It's the same. I don't want to get too far off on, but it's like the same shit.
you can
Farmers
you can
because
say
of
whatever you
ice.
want. I can always clip it.
It's I grew up in Ventura County. So if you know anything about
Yeah.
Ventura County, Santa Barbara, it used to be huge agricultural mecca of where strawberries, citrus, avocados, all that kind of grew up.
Mm.
And when we were down there, you could just see the fields and you could smell them, right? Normally, strawberry fields smell sweet. You're like, wow, it's early morning. The strawberries are super ripe. They smell delicious. And you can just smell them.
Mhm.
In some fields, you could smell them and they're sweet. In other ones, you're like, I smell sweet, but they're rotting. And you're like,
Mm.
there's no one to pick the crop, which then goes, yeah, you were paying $5 for a little clamshell of strawberries. Now you're probably paying 10 because they can only harvest half of their stuff because they don't have the power at B to harvest it, which is crazy. Like we have the bodies, we have the means, we just don't want to ever do it, which is sad, you know?
The whole, you're right. We could go down a whole rabbit hole with this, and I think you and I would see eye to eye on this. But it's mind-boggling for a logically thinking human being. The way we're going about it, it really is. It blows my mind. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
longer
You
debate
know.
over beer later, and we can go on a tangent now. But this will magically disappear.
Look at I was like, don't do it. Don't do it. It's a rabbit hole. It's a can of worms you don't want to open. It's just like now you're
It,
talking the whole system is somewhat broken
uh-huh.
and it's just weird to say that, to say that we have so much power as a nation to then be like not have the simple things in place to make a better society is really, really crazy. And
It's
I'm like,
priorities.
you don't want to be a welfare state, but at the same time, we basically are a welfare state. We just don't want to say we are. Instead of just saying, instead of handing out stuff, we just build the systems where it's just the new norm of
Hmm.
why does food cost as much as it does? It doesn't make sense, does it? Just
Not
doesn't.
even a little. Not even a little bit. Okay, so now it's time for the lightning round, folks. I know it's very exciting. So we're going to throw five questions at Chef Reed here. Think of it as like one of those ink blot tests. The
Okay.
first thing that hits your mind, you just blurt it out. We'll start kind of lighthearted and we'll get deep. Sweet or savory?
Savory. That's an easy one. No brainer.
I like it. You didn't even think about it. That's good. Last great meal you e- last great meal you ever had,
Last group.
and where was it?
Um, I think it was. I think it was right after Hillsburg. Was it after Hillsburg? I feel like after Hillsburg Food and Wine, we went to San Francisco. We stayed a couple extra days, and we had dinner at Sons and Daughter. And making was insane. His technical ability, plates were very petite, very detail oriented, but the flavor that he was able to produce in that small little bite of 3 bites was insane. Like Sons and Daughters, hands down, probably the last best meal I just had recently.
Wow. When a top chef starts talking about something being so good it's insane, you know you got to go there, folks. I'm gonna make sure we put the link on here. All right, let's get it more lighthearted again. What is the one kitchen tool you absolutely cannot live without?
So that one tool is always going to be my chef knife. Like hands down, I can do one knife. I can do almost anything you want. Break down fish, bone out legs of lamb, chop, slice. If I had to, I could probably cook something on it with a blowtorch. But yeah, my chef knife. It's always going to be a Japanese chef knife.
I was
They're
about to ask you.
usually most of mine, I use larger ones. So I use like 270s, 240 is like my smallest one I have. I like really
Okay,
favorite and not producing. But my chef knife is the one thing that's consistently always there with me.
nice. Okay, I kind of figured that was going to be the case watching you work on TV. All right, so this is sort of a family question. I'm guessing I'll get the same answer if I asked you. What's always in your fridge?
Always in our fridge. So let's get this straight. I don't cook at home, so it is built
That's
to
good to
make
know.
sure that
Interesting.
Mackenzie has food. So like every morning, she is I don't know where she got this from, but she is a sausage and waffle or pancake every morning kind of girl, which is kind of crazy. She's a twig and grows like a weed, but it's like the randomest. It's sausage, not bacon, sausage, pancakes or waffles, and eggs every freaking morning. Trying to get her to eat like a bowl of cereal is like painful. It's hard. So I have her milk and her cereal in house, but it's like same thing every day. She never gets tired of it. After 7 years of eating it, you'd think like she'd be like, "Can you switch it up?" No, it's always sausage, pancakes, waffles, eggs every morning for her. It's just like okay. Every once in a while, it'll be like yogurt and fruit for you and a smoothie, but there's always eggs, sausage, pancakes ready to go.
Well, thank God for the metabolism of youth, because that sounds delicious to me, but I would be 900 pounds if I did that every morning.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, it's more for our fridge is literally designed to feed a child. And then we eat whatever's left in the fridge after feeding her, because it's like usually there's a pasta or two pastas left over from the restaurant, some vegetable side dishes that make it home magically, so it's a hodgepodge of stuff. When we do cook at home, it's very intentional. Like, hey, we're gonna make penne pasta with sausage, and it's more to help her learn how to cook. So it's still
Right.
geared toward having a kid. Like, okay, we're gonna make baked barbecue chicken today, and we show her how to get involved in the cooking process since she's been very, very little, which is important to
So
us.
is she follow up then? Is she interested? Like, is she seem like she's got a love for it?
She loves. I think she loves spending time with her parents and her
Mm,
grandparents. And if
mm.
that means cooking, do I think she wants to be? If she wants to join the family business, she's more than welcome. She spends a couple days here during the summer, where she's here for long periods of times with both of us. But she wants to be an astronaut, maybe an astronaut chef. We'll see. I don't know. But the only thing she's ever said is she wants to be an astronaut. So
Hey, that's dream big, girl. That's awesome.
that's why I said, shoot for the stars. You want to be an astronaut? You got to be good at math. You got
Hmm.
to be you got to go for the sciences. Go for it. Go for it.
That's great. Okay, very last question. This one's a little deep. If you could share a bottle of wine with anybody, living or past, who would it be? And the bonus to that is what kind of wine?
Um, most chefs will be like another chef. Honestly, you know, I would like to see my granddad again. You have to own your own business. Hence why I opened a restaurant by the time I was 30, probably was because between him and my dad and the way they raised me, it was much more like be your own person, figure out your
Mm,
own lane, do your own race. And so, he grew up in St. Louis in a beautiful little town called Whitehaven. Grew up on Whitehaven Lane, where he was the first Black person to buy a house and build a house in Whitehaven, which was an all white town. My dad integrated an all white high school and was the first Black person to do that. And so a lot of my drive and determination came from them. And so, it would be nice that like he saw some of what and then you're like kind of like at this new pinnacle of your career. And it's like, I'm only 42. So it's like I still have a lot more to do and give. So it'd be
yeah,
nice
you
just
do.
to be like, look at what I've accomplished because of all your guys' hard work. So yeah. And for the wine, I think I would go do my favorite, which is Beckman's Grenache. A Cali boy through and through. It's
Mm,
up in
nice.
San Ynez, so it's it's something I discovered when I was 21 when we would go from Santa Barbara up to San Ynez, taste wine. And it's just little farm that does really good grenaches and a couple other blends. And it's just like one of those things that is just, you could drink that with nothing, or it could go perfectly with a nice steak. It's just right, you know?
Grenache is a really underrated solo grape, and like it's so versatile as a
It
red.
is. It is. Grenache is great. It's one of those things that
Yeah,
when it's done right, it's an excellent wine where it's like still full body but very juicy. You can go seafood or red meat. It's really awesome how,
absolutely.
if you find it and it's a good one, stick with it.
Yeah, now you got me thinking of Grenache, and it's not even noon. I got a few hours before that's acceptable.
Well,
Well,
the
chef,
dangerous part of our thing is always, reps will show up and be like, "You want to taste?" And you're like, "It is 1 o'clock. We have 4 hours before we open for service." No, no, I don't. Thank you. Thank
yeah,
you.
that's dangerous. So, hey, chef, thank you so much for joining me today. I know you're a busy man. I'm sure you're gonna get off
No.
here and get right to work, but it was a pleasure hanging with you. Look forward to seeing you up in Healdsburg, seeing you crossing fingers, kick butt on TLC again this year. Sorry,
Hopefully,
Chef Stephanie.
you know how well, building those friendships and relationships like that with Stephanie and Shota and everyone else from Tournament of Champions. So, you know, it's all in good fun.
No, you're right. I was just teasing. I mean, I got the chance to meet her for all of like a couple of minutes, and she seemed like the nicest person. So I'm sure she's
Yeah,
very competitive in the kitchen, but a complete awesome friend outside of
yeah.
it. So,
I think we
well, thank
all
you
are.
so much for your time. I really appreciate it. We're going to make sure we get the charities you talked about and the causes right here on the bottom of the screen and get people checking it out and supporting. But again, Chef Reed, thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. Make sure you check out the charity we talked about and don't forget to follow us wherever you find us: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Instagram.